Welcome to CivilNet. My guests today from London, from the UK, are members of the UK-Armenia Parliamentary Friendship Committee. We have Mr. John Whittingdale and Mr. Stephen Pound, and Mr. David Morris will join us shortly. Gentlemen, thank you for being here in Armenia, not just at CivilNet. And am I being too cynical if I ask, after Armenia's recent decision about European Association Agreement, are we still friends? Is there still a friendship committee? How does this work?
No, there certainly is a friendship committee. And obviously we respect the decision of the Armenian government. But I think in all our meetings, everybody we have spoken to has been very clear that they want to continue to build closer links between Europe and Armenia. And that's certainly one of the prime objectives of the friendship group in the British Parliament. And so that's something which we've been discussing, how we can go on strengthening those connections.
You've been a member of the Friendship Committee for years.
About 4 years. I joined and came to Yerevan a couple of years ago. I've been back since I was here for the presidential elections earlier this year, and so this is my third visit.
And what kind of progression do you see? Because we've stopped seeing, we start taking things for granted. What do you see? What kind of progression?
Well, I think first of all you have to bear in mind that Armenia is a relatively young democracy. 20 years ago, obviously, Armenia was under the communist control, and in such a short space of time, there has been a lot of progress. We are a parliament which is 600 years old, and we don't get everything right. But we talk to our fellow parliamentarians over here, and I think that there is a steady democratization. But obviously there are areas of concern which we've been talking about as well.
Mr. Pound, you have a large Armenian constituency in your district, and as I was saying off camera, these days the UK's foreign agenda, and not just the UK's, is quite complex, and I suspect Armenia is not really up there in the top 10. But you're here.
Yeah, well, I'm here, and I've been here for, been coming backwards and forwards for years. And it's not just the Armenian diaspora in Ealing, and it's not just September the 3rd that's brought us here. This is a long continuing process. But can I try to perhaps disabuse you of a notion that Armenia doesn't matter to the UK? Armenia is incredibly important. It is a beacon of political stability and potential progress in the South Caucasus. It is also going to be the template for the way that some countries will be developing in the future on a knowledge economy, this new idea of sort of the intellectual strength as opposed to the old physical, industrial, manufacturing strength. So it's intensely important to us. And also there's a very strong emotional linkage. I know people from outside Armenia must, are constantly going on about the past, and you must be so fed up with it. But as we come closer
because we still haven't dealt with it.
Well, April the 27th, 2015 is going to be an incredibly important date, and the United Kingdom Parliament was the first parliament to actually draw attention to what we now know as a genocide that was taking place at the time. So there is that emotional linkage which cannot be denied. I'm sorry, you cannot be denied. But above all, we in the United Kingdom want to see, there's no opposition to this, we want to see Armenia closer to the EU. But we understand that there are issues like the opening of the Turkish-Armenian border, which there has been no progress on, energy security, gas prices, the fact that you have a massive diaspora, probably the biggest diaspora of Armenians is in the Russian Federation, plus the export market that you have. These are issues that cannot be solved by sentiment or by looking backwards. They have to be solved by cold, hard politics and economics. And it's not any more to do with emotion. It's to do with practicality. We value the place of Armenia in the world, and particularly its geographical location, that still, calm voice of stability in one of the most turbulent regions on earth.
I hear and appreciate everything you've said. And perhaps September 3 has made me a bit cynical, but it seems to me that, as I said, accepting everything you've said, both the dream part of it and the real part of it, that it seems to me we don't do enough here in Armenia to get where we really are and our real everyday challenges out to those of you who truly do care and follow. And part of the challenge in Armenia is media. And you, Mr. Whittingdale, have said that that's one of your interests, passions, and so forth. What are the parallels? What do we learn? Who do we learn from? How do we break out of this, if I'm going to be polite, I'll call it media insufficiency that we have here in Armenia?
Well, I'm actually going in a couple of weeks' time to a conference in Brussels organised by the Council of Europe, which Armenia currently holds the chair, on plurality, the ownership of media, and transparency. And media freedom is a fundamental component of a functioning democracy. Now, things are changing very fast. The fact that you are now able to use the internet to reach people, a few years ago that was impossible. And the internet is breaking open the media in a way which is very exciting. But it is still very important that things like ownership is clear. One of the concerns we have heard about is that some of the publications in Armenia, it isn't entirely clear where the ownership lies, and that is something which doesn't just apply to Armenia by any means, but it's that kind of issue where I think there is still some progress to be made.
And how do we do that? Where is it Europe, the UK, holding our feet to the fire? Is it us looking at, I don't know which countries that have gone through this transition in a successful way? What do we cling to as we try to do that?
Look at Fox News and do the opposite.
I love it.
Well, I don't think anybody's under any illusion as to who owns Fox News, so in that respect, Fox News are perfectly entitled to express a view. I've got no problem with media expressing firm views, but you need to know where they're coming from. And Armenia is a member of the Council of Europe. There is a lot of work being done in this area, and I think there is further to go, but it is encouraging that we are able to have this conversation and that there are different points of view being expressed in the media.
It is an odd thing that the diaspora, in many cases, is an invisible diaspora. It's quite extraordinary. One of the unique qualities of Armenians outside Armenia is integration. I can't think of any other group of people who integrate so quickly, so rapidly, and so thoroughly. So very often I know people who have Armenian friends who didn't know they were Armenian, because some people have anglicized their names. Normally you can tell quite quickly. And oddly enough, football, the great universal language, the language of poetry, beauty, the working person's ballet, is now actually helping, because you now have famous Armenian footballers, 2 or 3 playing or 2 at the moment, playing in the English leagues. So it does come across, but in some ways, what I want to see is Armenia having a higher profile in the diaspora countries. Politically, in the United States and in France, there is a strong Armenian political presence. And certainly, the United States, actually, the Armenian community actually vetoed an appointment, a Washington appointment not so long ago. That's your business. In UK, where we have a very, very old, long established, not just Michael Harlan and the Gulbenkians and all those people, a long, long history of Armenians, because they integrated so quickly, we don't see them. So I would like to see more Armenians becoming more active. In my own district, the equivalent of a congressional district, we have the first Armenian councillor, Ara Iskandarian. The first.
Which whom we had here at CivilNet.
He is. I mean, he's only 14 years old, but he is.
Not quite, but,
okay, no,
but more or less.
He's about 22. Yeah, but we want more of that.
And I think we here in Armenia want more of that as well. And one of the things that I think we have left to us, given this EU association decision, is more people-to-people contact. And for that, perhaps we can invite Mr. Morris, Mr. David Morris, to speak about that as well. Because as you say, the diaspora's there, Europe's attention is hopefully still on us. What remains is that we make the right use of this. So we will invite Mr. David Morris to join us. Mr. Morris, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
And we're talking about an association agreement that apparently for this time at least has been frozen as far as Armenia is concerned. But we're also talking about the fact that Armenians are very much alive and well in Armenia as well as in the diaspora, and people-to-people contacts are one of the ways still available to us to really absorb what Europe is about, what European values are about. Do you see that path going forward? Do you see that as something that we truly can benefit from?
Oh yes, I think looking towards the future, Europe must embrace Armenia and vice versa. I know what happened not so long ago, a couple of weeks ago, is quite different, but shall we say in a nice way, I'm absolutely certain that the doors are still open for negotiation, but of course what has gone before it has now got to be reevaluated.
And given your experiences with this whole transition process, as positive as you've been, as positive as I know you want to be and need to be, tell us what you also see as possible stumbling blocks, obstacles, problems that we should have done away with by now.
As far as stumbling blocks go, Armenia is a new country. I know you've been around for centuries, but in this context, a new country, Europe is a new project, everything is a steep learning curve. I do think that the intellectual properties that Armenia do hold at this moment in time are the keys to its future. I think that once everything settles down, you know, Armenia could be a gateway from Europe and into Russia and bring both institutions together.
It's interesting, Mr. Whittingdale. You're not the first foreign officials who have implied, hoped that that sort of mixing of the two worlds might go through Armenia. We unfortunately don't see it that way. Do you see that that is something that we should be looking at?
But I can entirely understand why the Armenian president has taken this decision. Obviously, it does change the nature of the relationship with Europe. It means that the deep and comprehensive free trade agreement, for instance, can't proceed on the basis that it was going to. But we now need to look again and see what kind of association agreements can be reached, and that's something which I know my government would be keen to see happen. And I understand that, you know, we've talked to the foreign minister and to members of Parliament here, and that's something which everybody we've spoken to wants to see happen.
Well, we're not sure what the path to that is, but we certainly hope that with your help and encouragement and cooperation and others like you, that we can do the right thing for Armenia and Armenia's future. Thank you for your interest, your engagement, and thank you for being here with us on CivilNet.
Thank you.
And thank you for following us on CivilNet.